So for today's video, we're going to be tying this fly here. It is what me and my buddy named the Old Trusty. This fly has saved the day on the stream multiple times. Two distinct days I remember were the first day that we named the fly. I had this fly sitting in my box for a few weeks. Never used it. It was kind of just like a prototype fly. And then that one day we were out on Spring Creek and you know, all the normal flies were not working. I decided to pull this fly out and give it a try, and as soon as I put this on the end of my line, I mean, it was just, the fish were on it. I remember that day there was a bunch of stoneflies hatching. I tried out, you know, actual stonefly patterns, and it just wasn't, none of it was doing the trick. And then we got this fly on, and the fish were just on it like crazy. To me, it kind of looks like maybe like a very tiny stonefly. You know, it's black and silver, so it definitely can pass as like some sort of stonefly pattern. And then one more day that I remember that it distinctly saved the day was on Big Fishing Creek. A lot of you probably are familiar with that creek. It's, you know, very moody. I mean, if the fish just aren't on there, you might as well just go somewhere else sometimes. But I decided to stick it out that day, and I ended up throwing on this fly because I remember what it did at Spring Creek, and again, once I threw this fly on, it just ended up being an amazing day. Basically, I would say that this fly, it can be like some sort of very small stonefly pattern, and it can also save you when you're on like a stream where it's a very high pressured stream, and a lot of the normal stuff that people will throw like constantly, the fish are just tired of seeing it and want to see something new. So this can be that fly that'll turn around a day for you because it's just a little bit different than the others. The materials for this fly, we're going to tie this one on a size 16 jig nymph hook in a 2.8mm tungsten slotted bead silver. I tie this fly in size 18s as well with a 2.3mm tungsten bead silver. And then for the dubbing, again, we're going to use the ice dub Peacock black. If you watched my last video, I was telling you guys how I just love this stuff. It's basically the only thing I'll ever tie my pheasant tails with, and this fly here uses that as well. And then you're going to use the holo tinsel black medium. This is just some silver wire. I think it's like size medium, it doesn't really say, but you could use small on this. I think I would actually prefer to use small, but I don't actually have any small silver wire at the moment, so I've just been using this. And honestly, on the size 16s, it gives it more like a better segmentation, like the segmentation pops. I would say that if you're going to tie this in size 18 though, I would definitely use a small silver wire because the medium will it'll just be too wide and it cover up too much of the body. And then I like to use Veevus 8/0 thread. This is just black. Veevus is super strong. And then just natural pheasant tail fibers for the tail. So let's go ahead and get into it here. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start this off here. We're going to tie this on a size 16 jig hook. This is a double or 2x wide gap with a heavy wire. And this is a 2.8mm silver tungsten slotted bead. And this is like the little trick that I showed you guys in the last tying video. Just put the hook in upside down. Go ahead and pop the bead on and then just switch it around once I get the bead on. Then go ahead and situate your bead and tighten down the hook and the vise here. And then you're going to go ahead and get your thread and bobbin and go ahead and just start the thread right at the head and just work your way back to the hook bend. Come with your scissors, go ahead and cut off the excess. So we're going to go ahead and grab our pheasant tail now for the tail. Like I do with all my flies with pheasant tail tails, I use 3 fibers. Go ahead and snip those off. And for this, I'm just using like natural colored pheasant tail. Just make sure the tips are aligned. Go ahead and grab them by the tips. So we're going to go ahead and give it a few light wraps just to secure them on the hook shank here. Just about 3 wraps to hold them in place there, and then go ahead and pull them to length. I don't really go by the half the hook shank or the full hook shank length rule. I just kind of eyed it. It's not like a huge detail to me. And then take your thread to the top of the bead again, and once you get it secured down pretty tight there, you can go ahead and just pull those pheasant tail fibers off. The next step is going to be to grab your holographic black tinsel. And if you're tying a bunch, you know, as always, just pull off like a big long strip. This is just an extra piece that I had. So you're going to go ahead and tie this in at the front of the fly with a few, like, give it some tight wraps because you don't want this to go anywhere at this point in time. Just, you know, tie it in so that it's not going to go anywhere. Set that to the side, and then you're going to go ahead and grab your silver wire. For this I'm using medium. You can get away with the medium wire on the size 16s, and actually it kind of gives it more of like a pronounced segmentation. I kind of like it a little bit, and it definitely adds some weight. But for size 18s, you definitely want to use a small wire, because if not, it just takes up too much of the fly's body. So go ahead and tie this in at the front as well. And like I said, I tie all my materials mostly in at the front and then work back. It just helps keep the fly super even. I'm not big into tapered bodies. And then take touching wraps to the back while you hold both of these separate. You can make them tight wraps. And then once you get back to where the tail is tied in, just take a few tight wraps just to get back to the front. Again, I don't like putting a bunch of wraps in there when it's not necessary, because it just ends up building bulk on the fly unnecessarily. So now we're going to go ahead and take the black hollow tinsel, and you're going to wrap this normal or clockwise. I mean, you don't want to pull this stuff too tight because it'll stretch, but just make a few like slightly overlapping turns all the way up to the head of the fly. Then go ahead and grab your thread and just tie that off with about 2 or 3 tight wraps, and then you can come in and snip off the excess. And then you're going to grab your wire and you're going to counter wrap the wire. You can usually get about, with the medium wire, I would say about 3 segmentations on the body, about like that. And then we're going to do the trick, again, I learned this on Tightline Video, and I showed this in my last video with the pheasant tails. Basically, this is so that you can counter wrap and still have the thread pulling the wire tight. So basically, you're like this right now, you crisscross the wire and your thread. I don't know how good you guys can see that, but you crisscross them, and then this allows your thread to be taken backwards, and that's pulling the wire tight as you're wrapping and securing the wire to the fly. Once you give it a few nice wraps like that, crisscross it back, and you can take your thread the correct way and really just hunker that down. Go ahead and helicopter off the wire. And then for this fly, again, we're going to use that same magic dubbing, the Ice Dub Peacock Black. And again, you're not going to build up a super big collar here, so you're just going to take a very minimal amount. Go ahead and just get it worked on your thread there. Small little dubbing noodle. You just want to do about maybe 1.5 wraps around the fly. 2 if you went super light. But you don't want to build up the collar too much, then it just ruins the fly. So go ahead and just wrap that on there. It's about 1.5. And actually, I'm going to back that off because it's kind of loose. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and try that again. Alright. And don't be afraid to put like another thread wrap through the dubbing, especially if your thread's the same color as the dubbing. It's not gonna show or anything. It's just gonna help secure it through there. And once you get the dubbing on, you don't want to continue to give thread wraps in there. It just builds up bulk again. So what I do, as soon as I get the dubbing on, I grab my whip finisher, give it a 3-4 turn whip finish, pull it tight, snip off the thread. And then with all my nymphs or smaller flies, I give it UV cure resin instead of like super glue. I'll use super glue on streamers or something where the head of the fly is a lot bigger and it won't mess up when it dries. Because that super glue, sometimes it'll dry like white or super hard and like mess up the fly. So just get a little bit on my toothpick, of UV cure, and then I just work it down into that slot on that tungsten bead. I just like to pack it down in there and then give it a shot of UV for about 30 seconds. The longer you give this a shot of UV, the less it's going to be tacky and the better it's going to be dried. I see a lot of tying videos where they'll just give it like a 10-15 second shot of UV. I don't know if they're just doing that for the video, but if I give it that little of UV, it always is like super tacky. So I like to give it like a 30-second dry here so that it's not tacky when it's done. Alright, so that's the finished fly here. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this fly has saved quite a few days on the stream for me. And I've had a bunch of days where this fly, you know, totally destroyed when nothing else was working. So it's definitely worth a spot in your fly box if, you know, you fish a lot of pressured water or something like that, where some days the regular flies that you would use aren't working. That's kind of why we named it the Old Trusty. Kind of throw it on whenever you're stuck in a pinch and nothing's working. Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Stay up to date on my content, and leave a like on the video if you enjoyed the video. Helps keep my morale up. And leave any comments that you guys have for any videos that you want to see, whether it be more fly tying, any specific flies you want to see, any type of specific fishing. I know I haven't done a lot of nymphing on the channel, but all the way up until about just this fall, I was super into nymphing, and that's basically all I did. I never even really threw streamers before this point, so a lot of my fishing up until this fall was all nymph fishing. So let me know if you guys want to see more nymph fishing, and we can definitely, you know, make that happen. And until next time, tight lines and peace.